Hello, today we're going to talk a little bit about accessibility and equity. This is a first part of a three-part series, and today will be a basics on understanding disabilities. So growing up with a hearing loss in the 1970s looked very different than it might today. Most children with disabilities were not included in general education classes until the 1980s, when mainstreaming became the model. And that was kind of my case in the beginning of my education. Then later in 1990, many years after I left school, the American with Disabilities Act became law, and that prohibited discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. So that's the basic ADA law. While these monumental advancements have been made, the average person may still not be familiar with different disabilities until it affects them or someone in their immediate circle, like their friends or family members or maybe coworkers. Fortunately, my disability led me to a career later in life where I could draw upon my experiences and better serve my community. So over the past 20 years, I've been working directly with a diverse population of those who identify as deaf, disabled, and those who are senior citizens who might have a disability and don't identify in that way. One of the most rewarding jobs I've had thus far. So my name is Helen Louise Stiver, and I will be your guide on this three-part series on accessibility and equity. And today we're just going to go over some of the basics of each disability and some best practices. So I hope that that's helpful as we have more of a conversation. So disability affects approximately 61 million people, or nearly 1 in 4 people in the United States, and more than 1 billion people worldwide. According to the Center for Disease Control, a disability is any condition of the body or mind, clinically it's referred to as an impairment, that makes it more difficult for the person with the condition to do certain activities. So they might refer this as an activity limitation and interact with the world around them, which is referred to as participation restrictions. Some people are born with disability, while others, the disability results from an illness or an accident. And many experience disabilities as they get older. Many of us may eventually face some kind of limitation ourselves. So it's important to recognize that people with disabilities are just like everyone else. They engage in activities in the community. They shop, do business, attend events, work, go to school, just what you and I may do on a daily basis. People with disabilities are commonly thought of as belonging to one group. However, each kind of disability has specific characteristics and that may affect different areas that they are able to do or different areas in their life. So it's important to keep in mind during interactions with somebody who has a disability that not everyone is the same. So as I said previously, today we will be discussing general categories of disabilities. And within each category, there are, of course, a multitude of diagnoses and causes. Our focus here will not be from a medical standpoint. Rather, it will be more of an overview to provide a foundation for understanding of accessibility and inclusion. Just a reminder that individual experience is unique. We may have similar experiences, however, the nuances and what actually affected us, is just different for every person. So therefore, please keep in mind that the best practices that I offer here, or any other presentation that might talk about best practices, they are simply guidelines, and they're not meant to override an individual's preferences, what they might suggest that they prefer, or any requests that they may have as far as accommodation is concerned. So we're going to start with what is categorized as low vision. Vision disabilities reduce a person's ability to see clearly. Some may have a limited central vision. They may rely on peripheral or side vision. Some people can see the outline of objects, maybe not the details, while some may only detect the direction of light. So limited vision may restrict the ability to read signs, for example, or locate landmarks. They may find it difficult to be aware of hazards. However, not all people with vision difficulty or disability use a guide dog or use a white cane, and it may not even be noticeable that a person has a vision disability. So here are just some suggestions, although I've labeled it as best practices, to engage with someone with low vision. And this is either in a professional setting or just on a personal basis. So you would want to identify yourself when you approach someone with low vision, or when the person approaches you, and speak directly to them. Don't assume that the individual can't see you at all. As I pointed out, there are different ranges of vision acuity. Never touch someone without asking permission, unless it's an emergency. I know we all want to be helpful, but that is an invasion of someone's personal space. If you do offer assistance, wait until you receive permission. Don't assume. And once you do receive permission, you can offer your arm, the elbow, for example, to guide the person, and make sure to walk slowly. Don't leave someone in the middle of a room if you're assisting them. Show them to a chair or guide them to a comfortable location, like the counter, for example. And if the person has a service animal, most frequently what you might see as a guide dog, or commonly known as a guide dog, remember that that animal is working and has to pay attention at all times. So do not touch or address a service animal. So now we'll talk a little bit about hearing loss. Hearing loss has a wide variety of degrees. People who have a hearing loss may be deaf or hard of hearing. They may use assistive devices such as hearing aids or cochlear implants to help improve their hearing. Some only hear specific frequencies or specific sounds within a certain volume, or what is referred to as a decibel range. Now you notice I said deaf with a small d, because people who identify as deaf with a uppercase D, deaf, may not consider themselves as having a disability. They view being deaf as a cultural identity, with its own language, customs, and norms, because sign language itself is not universal. American Sign Language is recognized as a language with its own syntax. morphology, and structure. It's used in the United States, and it's very different from British Sign Language, for example. Some things to take into consideration when you're engaging with someone with a hearing loss. Track a person's attention before speaking with them. You can maybe slightly wave your hand or gently touch them on the shoulder. Try to get their eye contact and look and speak directly to the person. Getting that eye contact is really important. Don't shout at them. Don't put your hands in front of your face or mouth when speaking. They may be relying on lip reading, or that might augment their communication. Don't over exaggerate or slow down when speaking. And ask if another method of communicating would be easier. For example, texting or using a pen and paper, or maybe even some sort of talk to text app is very helpful if you have that on your device. If the person uses a hearing aid, try to move the conversation to a quieter area where there's less distraction, and speak directly to the person if they are using an interpreter. Be clear and precise when giving directions, and repeat or rephrase if necessary. Sometimes people miss a word, and if you rephrase it, then they will be able to understand the context or the concept. So that will help to make sure that you've been understood. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about specific learning disabilities. And so by no means does this cover the entire spectrum of learning disabilities. This is a very general discussion. So learning disabilities can present as a variety of different communication difficulties, and this may affect a person's ability to process information, express thoughts or emotions. Maybe a learning disability, and it might not be clearly noticeable. It could present in the way a person behaves or uses body language. Individuals with specific learning disabilities in general may have an average to above average intelligence. However, understanding abstract concepts may be one of the difficulties that they have, and they might need more time to process information, or they might need information to be presented in different formats, such as audio or visual or text, for example. So some things that you can do when you're engaging with someone with a specific learning disability would be to understand that people with some kinds of learning disabilities may take more time to process and respond. So please be patient. Ask the person how you can best help. Don't make assumptions based on previous experiences with others. And in general, this is something to keep in mind when you're engaging with anyone with a disability. Asking the person how you can best help is always a good rule of thumb. Let the person tell you what works or what does not work for them. Speak normally and clearly and directly to the person, not to their aide or their person that's with them, for example. Patience and a willingness to engage are appreciated, and offer information in different formats. As I was saying before, perhaps they receive information better if it's visual, or others if it's audio or written. Mobility disabilities range from lower body limitations, which may require the use of canes, walkers, wheelchairs, or upper body limitations, which may result in limited or no use of their arms or hands, or it may be a combination of both. So identifying a person with a physical disability may be difficult. Once again, people may have underlying difficulties or diseases or disorders, such as people who have heart or lung conditions or arthritis, for example. So they might have difficulty with moving, standing, or sitting, and it might not be something that is clearly obvious. So when you're engaging with someone with a mobility difficulty, keep these things in mind. People with physical disabilities often have their own ways of doing things. So ask before you help. Be patient and allow the person to identify their needs to you. Don't touch assistive devices, including their wheelchair, unless it's in an emergency. And then again, please make sure that you alert them or let them know that you will be assisting them. Speak normally and directly to the person, not to someone who is with them, and remove any obstacles and furniture to ensure clear passage. So if they're going to be sitting with you at a table, you might need to move a chair aside so that there is room for them to pull up to the table with their wheelchair. And take a seat when engaging with someone in a wheelchair so that they're not constantly having to strain their neck to look up at you, and also that you are putting yourself on the equal level as them and they feel more comfortable. Speech disabilities. Some disabilities affect the ability to produce speech sounds, resulting in difficulty communicating. It could be the result of another disability or disorder. For example, someone with cerebral palsy could have difficulty speaking. It may cause slurring or stuttering. Someone who's had a stroke, they might have a diminished ability to express themselves. Speech aphasia is common. Hearing loss or another condition may also make it difficult to pronounce words. And cancer that affects the larynx may require a surgery called a laryngectomy. This is a procedure that removes all or part of the larynx or voice box. Implements that assist with speech communication may include computer-based speech output systems, known sometimes as speech-generating devices, anti-stuttering devices that help people to speak more fluidly, speech amplification units, and in the case of larynx removal or laryngectomy, there are electrolarynx devices. So when you're engaging with someone with speech difficulties, if you don't understand, ask the person to repeat the information. It may be easier to ask questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no. Don't interrupt or finish their sentences. Wait for them to finish on their own. Ask if another method of communicating would be easier. For example, maybe they would like to write things down using a pen and paper. Maybe they prefer to text or write something on a device. Don't assume that the person has a cognitive disability simply because they have difficulty speaking. Speak directly to the person and not to the person with them. So many types of disabilities may have similar characteristics. As you overheard me going through some of the basics on those general disability topics and suggestions on engaging with them, you might have noticed some of the similarities. So if you are not familiar with the disability that the person that you're engaging with has, then you can wait until that person describes their situation to you. Don't make assumptions. And if their disability is not relevant to the situation that you are in, don't ask personal questions about their disability unless they initiate the subject and the conversation. That is their personal story, their personal business, and it's not relevant. For example, perhaps if you're a caseworker, it may be relevant. But if you're working in a coffee shop, then it doesn't relate to how you're engaging in that situation. But people without disabilities may not understand the barriers that people with disabilities face on a daily basis. So it's important to remember that we all have different talents, different abilities, different strengths, and different interests. People with disabilities are just like everyone else. They go to school, they get married, they have families, they go to work, they play sports and eat out. They go shopping, drive, travel, volunteer, pay taxes, participate in politics, enjoy life, feel pain, and have hopes and dreams. So I hope that this general overview will help you to have a better understanding of people with disabilities and will help you to better engage with them in your daily life or in your professional work. Thank you. Here are a few of the references that I referred to or sources. And if you want more information, very good resource that I found was a disability language style guide found at ncdj.org/style-guide.